Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ladies of the PGS. I am your host, RM, and of course, we have with us today Lorena Creole. Lorena, how are you?
I am doing great. I'm doing great and so glad to be here with all of you today here on the network.
Oh, goodness, Lorena, it is wonderful to have you here. And there is a lot to talk about. This is now what week two of this strike that we
Hmm.
all, no one really wanted this strike. I'm sure even the people on this picket line, unfortunately, are going through with this, but it's sad that we are even at week two.
Hmm.
A lot of famous names are on this picket line, Lorena. And I have a feeling this is just the beginning. Every single day we hear stories about shows that have had to stop and
Right.
different writers who are also producers but also directors but also
Hmm.
showrunners wearing multiple hats who have to kind of stop. Their roles are defined, but because they are either members of WGA or are part of IATSE or SAG or whatever, and depending upon the way that particular show is structured, there are a lot of people who have to go ahead and stay on those picket lines. Lorena, it is complicated. What a complicated, tangled situation it is.
Mm.
But I can't help but have a lot of sympathy towards all these shows where people are showing up, and we are seeing this, right, Lorena? It seems like people are showing up to work, and the productions are being, stopped, closed down, and it is
Hmm.
quite a story because real life people are have to handle this. You think the show's going to be, doing whatever you would normally do in the course of
Right.
the day, and then you show up to work and they're like, no, we're going to have to shut the show down. What a jarring thing to have to deal with. Lorena, what do you think about it?
It really is a tough situation. Of course, like after living in LA for a couple of years and seeing how so many people downstream depend on these productions and the cost of living in Los Angeles. To quote Jerry Doyle, he called it the high cost of low living. That's what he would call it. God rest his soul. But it is very difficult. Um, and I'm just so concerned about people, downstream. You get a show, you think that it's going to last a certain amount of time. And now with this writer strike and things running to a halt, it's just like what are people going to do? So it's I really don't think that there's really any winners right now in this at all. And again, this is 2023. It's not 2007, and the strike isn't going to be resolved anytime soon. I just hope that the WGA is doing things to help people affected by this strike. So I really do hope that that's what they're doing and looking out for the folks further downstream instead of it's just about me and that's it.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, this is while it is true, that people are different things happen, this is a disruption that is
Mhm.
incredibly traumatic, as you and I are both saying. It's been now 2 weeks. This is, I guess, day 14 or day 15 or whatever it is,
Mhm.
where the entire community has to kind of readjust itself because it affects everybody who's working on current projects, but then it also stops any kind of work into perpetuity. So, you had a meeting that was scheduled for this week. No, you don't. It's canceled. You thought you were going to be able to pitch something or do something. No, you can't do any of that. So it kind of,
Mhm.
this thing not only stops you from writing, but it also stops you from doing all those normal things that you would normally be doing, which might be going to a meeting, sitting in on something, somebody asks you your opinion for something, maybe
Mhm.
they send you something and they ask you to look over a script or two or something. You can't do any of those things. So this is, quite a, shocking thing for any writer, I'm sure, going through this. And as you said, everybody down the line who's affected by it. And we're talking everybody from craft services to the makeup people to the other trades and the other production crew, even people who are members of other unions. Not everybody's a member of WGA, but there are a lot of
Mhm.
people who are members of SAG-AFTRA. There's a lot of people
Yes.
of IATSE, and the list goes on and on. The number of supporters who are there, they have each other's backs, and we knew this was going to happen. We knew that when this strike was happening, they were going to say, you know, we're going to support this, we're going to support this. But we are seeing a lot of big names taking, you know, coming to the picket lines, for example. And also, it is very true that a lot of these bigger names, you know, like the Gilroys who wrote on Andor, or one of the, I think Tony Gilroy has been asked to kind of, even though he does multiple roles, they said, okay, you know, can you come and support? And I think he'd already been doing it, but they
Mhm.
need these sort of bigger writers, more well-known writers, to be out there to draw attention to this strike. And we do kind of see that. I mean, here, I think Neil Gaiman, I believe I was just listening to one of his stories the other day.
Mhm.
The Sandman, I think he wrote that. And Tom Jr. Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I literally, when I was in London, I went to the pub where they filmed part of the Sandman, at the New Inn, not too
Mhm.
far away from Richmond, UK. And I was like, this is so cool. I was literally at the booth where they filmed the scene where he meets his friend who he's had for hundreds of years. He meets him every 100 years. And I
Yeah.
thought to myself, can you imagine meeting a friend every 100 years? Like, I would forget. I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's Tuesday such and such. I'm supposed to meet this person and I only meet them every 100 years. Oh my gosh, I forgot, you know. But it was just kind of like these fun things. He is even on the picket lines supporting the troops, so to speak, if you will, on this incredibly important situation here. And I get that here. I'm just going to share part of this headline here. But there's what's interesting to me, you know, so we're not surprised to see big names. Reina, you and I are not surprised to see big names. Everybody in the chat, we're not surprised to see big names. I think I
Mhm.
saw Rob Lowe's name in there. I think I would have
Yeah.
probably showed up, Lorena, if I like, oh, Rob Lowe's going to be on the picket line. I got to go see Rob Lowe, see how he's doing, you know.
Mhm.
Been making some pretty good films out of Netflix. He made this one where he and his son were looking for his son's dog. I think it's called Dog, but I'm not sure. I can't remember if
Mhm.
that's what the name of it was, but it was really good. And Rob Lowe still looks really good. So it was a fun movie. It actually dealt with quite a serious issues as well. So it wasn't just, you know, let's go and see if we can find the dog and everything. It was a little bit more involved than that. But here we can see, it says breaking news dispatches from the WGA picket lines, day 14, Neil Gaiman among 200 riders picketing NBC Universal up front. And even for the bigger riders, this still must be somewhat stressful for them. This is not your everyday occurrence, you know, to have to go on a picket line. Now, Lorena, I've got to tell you, um, for me personally, something that is very interesting is
Mhm.
the fact that I know when it comes to these unions, I mean, and you did send me a link, and we're going to take a look at that as well, Lorena. When we see these unions, I'm accustomed to seeing those giant inflatable rats. Do you know the ones, Lorena?
Yes, I do. I do. I've seen them around. It seems like whenever there's construction going on, they put the inflatable rat up and they're cutting people out and da, 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 this, that, and the other thing. And you could almost count on it. As soon as some kind of construction project starts up that is non-union, by the way, that's when they'll put the inflatable rat up.
Yeah, I think it's so amazing that you know, even unrelated, I immediately think, I was like, oh, it's a strike. Where's the inflatable rat? Now I don't know I doubt that we're gonna see something like that for the WGA. But I can't help myself but think about it, because you know, you'll be walking through the streets and then all of a sudden you'll see this rat that's like 2 stories high or something. You know,
Yeah. You're just
he's
like,
like
"What?
20
Say
feet.
what?"
You're like, who is the company that makes these giant rats? I
I
don't
don't know. When I first saw one, I thought there was a bouncy castle nearby or
Yes,
something. 'Cause
Chuck E. Cheese or something. I'm like,
I know,
did Chuck E. Cheese,
right?
like, he's down the way. That's Chuck E. Cheese is a few blocks down. You
Yeah.
guys are at the wrong spot. It is kind of funny, but certainly seeing these picket lines is something. Honestly, they have a generic. That's probably not the actual picture of some generic
Mhm.
picture, but it is very jarring and it is very serious in a sense that they are doing this. But they're showing support here. And you also sent me a link, Lorraine. Let me just open this up here for a second.
Yes, something that is very
Yes.
important and not unexpected because I do believe the same scenario had happened before,
Yes.
where as soon as the WGA had their strike,
Hmm.
contract negotiations with the DGA, which is the Directors Guild of
Hmm.
America, started, and they are in talks right now. So I would not be surprised if the DGA goes on strike as well. And if the Directors Guild goes on strike, ain't nothing really gonna be happening.
Yeah, and as you and I said, we're looking down the list of stuff that's being postponed, canceled, postponed, stopped in mid-show. People have their schedules and they've scheduled everything to be there for these things, and those things they thought it was not going to be affected now are being affected. There's
Mhm.
delays for movies, delays for other projects, delays for those meetings that set up those new projects going forward. So it is really serious. This is getting incredibly serious. Here you have the Director Guild begins contract negotiations as this strike continues. And of course, here it says that they have returned to the picket line on Thursday as the contract for the Directors Guild of America heats up. The
Mhm.
WGA is now returned to the line. Now, this one, the talks between the DGA and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers began on Wednesday and reportedly focused on many of the same issues as the WGA. Now, Lorraine, you and I both know that I don't believe, just between you and I, that an artificial intelligence is going to have the same impact on the directors. But sometimes in these negotiations, the other guilds take on the same issues, don't they?
They kind of like carry the issue as a way of showing support and putting pressure to come to to address the terms that the workers are striking for. So it's
That's
kind of like a
right.
snowball effect.
Absolutely. And here it says some of the priorities for the DGA include addressing wage stagnation, improving residuals in the streaming era, and improving on-set safety for workers. The DGA and Screen Actors Guild contracts, I'm sorry, yeah, both expire on June 30th, and SAG and AMPTP expect to begin negotiations.
Ah,
So
shoot.
now we have WGA, W uh the DGA and SAG and
And SAG.
yeah. So this is
And did you mention AFTRA?
yes, I did mention AFTRA. Yeah,
Okay.
because obviously I don't think anything can happen for after, let's say, the after people, or even some people in IATSE, if the rest of the crew isn't on board and working. So a lot of the teams, it's a whole bunch of different, they have different groups for each bit of these productions, but even if you set up everything, if the actors aren't there, you're not going to see anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was just gonna clarify because I know for some friends of mine who were actors, some of them were members of AFTRA
Yes.
and they were not particularly in SAG. Like
Right.
SAG is kind of like it's like the difference between the major and the minor leagues. Major leagues is SAG, the minor leagues is AFTRA,
Yes.
but they
And
kind of tag on together there.
yeah, and although we don't see it mentioned here in this particular article, I would not be surprised. You and I would not be surprised. I'm sure many people in the chat would not be surprised if After went ahead and supported this. In fact, I think you and I have seen articles where they mentioned that they would show support,
Hmm.
meaning that they would not work and hold off on doing projects to support this. So this is very interesting, Lorena, and something that I think is very true, is that a lot of people have been saying that, this whole thing is happening. It's right when these contracts are expiring. The strike,
Mhm.
not a surprise. The contract was never renegotiated, so the strike happens. But part of it also is to perhaps wean out some writers or change these writers' rooms for writers who were put in place or hired um, that may not be the best writers, and maybe even to kind of slim down or reduce the number of shows and focus
Mhm.
more on writers that write shows that bring better viewership. And so this is just a way to kind of also, it just so happens to be happening at the same time. How does the industry deal with this? How do they do this? Well, there's a possibility that a lot of these writers may not be coming back, which is something that's unfortunate. I don't like to see anybody lose their jobs, and I'm sure everybody here feels the same way. But
Mhm.
this negotiation is very, very different, has a very different tone, Lorena, than what I've seen, versus asking for more money because they're doing more work, or the work is at a certain level where they feel that they can ask for additional monies for stuff that they deserve. Certainly is something to consider in a time where we're not getting the same quality of work all the way around. So this is
Mhm.
something to think about. And Lorraine, you remember back in the day, there'd be a ton of good shows, but not every show was successful, even if it was good. We knew this. It's like, oh, that show was great, but it didn't give it didn't
Mhm.
necessarily produce the way we would have liked for it to produce. And so that was pretty common back then. But as of right now, that's not always the case. In fact, we're not getting, as far as I'm concerned, the same quality of shows that we used to get, even when, and I don't know how they did it, Lorena, when they were making 22 episodes a year. Um, those writers were, like busting their butts to give us
Mhm.
quality television. It doesn't feel like we're necessarily getting that same level. We know there's been a huge shift in employment when it comes to this, a huge shift in the talent of people that we know and love who have kind of been pushed to the side, even in some cases. So we know there's been a huge shift in employment, but let's see what happens. We've seen articles where some of these individuals, these very talented individuals, are being brought back into organizations because
Mhm.
they're like, we better do something before we kind of lose it all in this way, and we want to get back on track. But let's see what happens, because I have a feeling this might be the biggest shift. I don't know if it's going to happen, but this might be the biggest shift of employment we've seen in a long time, Lorena. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention, um back to this other article, and of course you and I are on the same wavelength here, is has to do with what I essentially call tattletaling. um and what I'm
Mm.
referring to is um this scab reporting website. I can't even believe I'm reading this.
Wait a minute. Wait. So they basically launched a site where you can narc on people, right?
So now you got to tell on your friends and your coworkers. You have to be a tattletale. Since when did this happen? What is this?
You know what? See, this is another reason why I do not like unions. I really don't. Um, to do something like this, seriously? How are you, it's like, how are you required? Where is that in my union contract that I have to, if I see somebody crossing the picket line, I have to tell them who it is. I'm not telling you anything. You have people who are trying to feed their families, they have to do all of that, and you expect me to narc on it? No, you do it yourself. This is
This
disgusting.
this comment, Lorraine, I agree with you 100%. This comment of, quote, you must inform the guild. This is like the type of stuff that you get beat up over, isn't it? Like, this is some serious stuff. Um, what is going on? It's in print here. I mean, even if you suspect somebody, since when do you have to be the police on your own friends? What is this? This is not exactly, first of all, I don't think that's very professional.
No.
Because what if you're wrong? What if you think that you've seen and that you know what's going on, and it turns out no, 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 no. This person is not actually doing that. And you go ahead, look at this. Those who fail to report suspected scabs can face discipline themselves. Is that really fair? Come on. You must inform the guild of the name of any writer you have reason to believe. And that's just suspicious. That's not even proof. You have reason to believe is engaged in scab writing or other strike breaking activity. It's this, the guild strike rule number 9. To the extent possible, you should be specific about the nature of the violation, including the date and place, the name of the struck company involved, and the name of the project, if any. And there's an actual site. Here it is. You click on there. The strike rules under Article 10 of the guilds says discipline may include, but is not limited to, any or all the following: expulsion or suspension from the guild, imposition of monetary fines or censure. Discipline is imposed is enforceable through the courts. Come on.
Forget that.
Come
No.
on.
No, it's no. You want people to snitch for you. No. It's stuff like this, again, which makes them look extremely bad in the court of public opinion to do stuff like this. I mean, you'd hear about, hey, we don't want scabs breaking the picket line or, and all of that. But that was people who would actually show up to do this. Now, suspected, seriously? Suspected, not proven. Not, hey, we got pictures, but just if you suspect something, and then if you don't report it, then you could get reported to. It's things like this that a part of me wants to say, you know what? You guys made your bed, you need to lie in it.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't like it. I think it's a bad decision. I think what happens is that it's going to promote, I think a lack of brotherhood or sisterhood or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And this lack of brotherhood or sisterhood can actually harm, as far as I'm concerned, these unions. I think if at any moment you have this fear that somebody's snitching on you, now all of a sudden anybody can do this.
I mean, what's next? They show up at your house. They show up, intimidating your family. I mean, I'm not saying that could happen, but hey, it possibly could. And it's not a good look. And if you want the public to sympathize with you, because yes, you are providing a product that is consumed by the general public, by the masses, you want them on your side. This kind of snitching thing is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I couldn't believe I was even reading this. This was the kind of thing where you're like, excuse me, what did you say? It's not anything I think anybody even thinks about. And the fact that it's even down in black and white is completely absurd. But I did manage to find something. Where is this thing? I think I enlarged it. It was hard for me to get a bigger picture of this thing. You knew I had to go get that rat, Lorena. You knew I had to get
Yeah.
The union rat.
Like an old friend. Yes, that's exactly the one. They'll be out there and you'd have the people picketing, or, well, it wasn't a whole lot. Usually it was like 1 or 2 of them or something like that. And we're just like, what did they pay unfairly or what, or whatever. I'm just like, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah,
Are we supposed to stop and honk or what?
Actually, when you see it, according to my family members, you're not supposed to go anywhere near where it is. So unless you're part of the union and you've been told to be there, you should not be in that area at all. Like if you see it in front of a building, just walk the other way. Don't go in front of it. I'm like, I've gone in front of it not knowing. And
Oh, okay. I was gonna say here they had it part like there was this TGI Fridays. I guess they're gonna make it into something else, and
yeah,
they
yeah,
had this rat outside the fence. Yeah, we were just driving by. We were like stop in, but we're just the kids are like, "Is that any toys at a bouncy castle?"
yeah. I mean, I kind of, but to be honest with you, this thing where this tattletale rule, I smell a rat. I had to say that because
Yeah.
it isn't. I don't think that's right to put that type of pressure on members who are already under pressure, from all of this that you and I both know isn't going to turn out any way we think this thing is going to. Like, this is going to be the craziest settlement ever. What do you think?
It's going to be absolutely nuts because again, this is 2023. It's not 2007. It's not like we're getting this plethora of shows that are written very well. We're not. We're not. And some people are like, oh, well, we have to write according to a checklist. I'm like, yeah, you can do that according to a checklist and actually write something that, looks good and people want to tune in and watch. But the general public, again, that consumes your product has deemed a good portion of your product to not be acceptable. So they're going to the shows that they do, that they do like, so that when they hear something about, oh, well, there's a writer's strike, they're basically like, okay, what does this mean for Cobra Kai? What does this mean for, and we're talking these top tier shows. We're not talking about, let's say, something on Disney Plus or something on Peacock or some obscure film that no one really knows about. There is a ton of content, not only that's out there on streaming, people have backlogs of physical media. Your girl personally has about 500 Blu-rays packed up. And I'm just like, I can just put this on and I'm perfectly fine. We'll miss the shows that we love, but the majority of them are not that good. They're not. So unfortunately, this is the soup that you guys are swimming in. You've got streaming that's going on, people who can not only watch US based content, but they're looking more towards foreign content. Places like, series like Netflix, not only are they piling up on the foreign content, they're putting more money into like independent content that they're getting. And again, you have a public who just feels tired of mediocre products. And there's no reason right now for the studios to settle with the Writers Guild. It's like a siege right now.
Hmm.
That's going on.
And
Um,
and maybe these are storylines, we've seen a change not only in from network to streaming, but also the number of episodes per season. And maybe these were storylines that were never intended for eight or 12 episodes. Maybe they were intended for an entire season, a 22 to 26 season episode run. And
mhm.
if you're a writer who's never written before and you've never written 20 something episodes, it will be hard for you to be able to even do 8 episodes, and with demands of what, let's say they're asking for now. And thank you, Justin. Steer clear of Scabby the rat, no selfies, would say it's horrible. I didn't know you weren't supposed to go near it. Lorena, you and I both, I was like, oh, oh,
Yeah.
like, you can't ignore this thing. But on the serious note, yeah, I had no idea we weren't supposed to go near. But Lorraine, you're right. This is one of the things that they're going to say, hey, the content hasn't been great. This shows you've worked on. Are they going to take individual writers for their particular resumes and say, well, look at the shows you worked on. Those are some of the lowest rated shows ever over the last 5 years. It's going to be brutal, I think, if it gets down to something like that. And why wouldn't anybody point that out? Because they haven't been great. Not like what we were accustomed to seeing in past years. And those guys were busting out 20 episodes, 20 45-minute episodes that were
Mhm.
consistently good. As you and I both said, again, of shows that were good but didn't make it. Something like Alaska Daily, and I don't know if any of you watched it, but I liked that show. And even that show has been either canceled or is not going to second season. It was only maybe
Mhm.
6 or 7 episodes, but it was a good show. And here's another good show where it didn't go to fruition. That didn't get the ratings. However, it was a well-written show, which is rare these days, right? But to be honest with you, even the writers there, they could argue your show was written well, but look, the ratings didn't, we're not up to par. And that could be a bargaining point. That could be a bargaining point, honestly, for some people to be told no to some of these terms. So I don't,
Yeah.
since it's such a strong sticking point, I think a lot of people are going to really hold on to that, and they won't let go. They're not going to let go of this because they feel like they have to do something now, and this is the moment. But honestly, Lorena, I don't think this was the moment. I think they should have just said, we'll stick with whatever you have. We'll take the paycheck. We're fine with it. I don't really feel like they have a lot of negotiating power. It is very
Mhm.
unfortunate, but I don't see it. I think some of the bigger names that we know, these great writers who are out there, and
Yeah.
even writers who may not even be working right now, Lorena, might have more clout in this type of an environment.
Yeah. Right now, the writers that have been doing well, the writers that have a name, for themselves, they're going to be fine. They're going to
Yes.
be absolutely fine. They'll be a little bored, but they'll be fine. But the industry right now, Hollywood is doing an economic course correction.
Hmm.
Every other industry has seen this. Hollywood's been immune from it for quite some time, but this is what you're seeing. Studios do not have the money to put out like they used to because they're seeing what sells and what doesn't sell, and they're cutting what doesn't sell. And yes, AI is a threat. It is. No lie. It is a threat. But the bottom line is the studios do not have the money that they used to. The
No.
studios are the ones that write the checks. So the studios are the ones right now who do not have an incentive to come to the bargaining table. Something has to hurt enough for them to say, okay, all right, maybe we should start talking to you, because right now the studios have the power.
Exactly. And many of you in the chat are commenting. I know some of you in the chat work in the industry. We do know that many of you are industry professionals and are
Yes.
dealing with this. And we have the utmost sympathy for what you're going through. We are not criticizing any of the decisions that were made. We're simply saying it's very hard to put a coworker under this type of pressure, to be
Yeah.
a tattletale on another coworker at a time when so much is at stake. We don't want anybody losing their jobs. Honestly, if there was a way to make this work, God bless the person who can make this work for everybody. But I have a feeling, it feels like there's going to be a huge shakeup in this, as Lorena and I are saying, and many of you in the chat agree to. Something to think about. And Lorena, I do have to ask this question. I don't know if you had a chance to see this film, but have you had a chance to see Guardians of the Galaxy 3?
I have indeed gotten a chance to watch it, and I went to watch it in 3D, not because I wanted to, but because that was the most convenient showing.
Okay.
So yes.
And in your professional opinion, I'm not, I don't, I would you give it the thumbs up or the thumbs down?
I would give it, I'm going to say yes and no. I would give it a thumbs up in general. Compared to all three of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, it's like the last one. My favorite's the second one, then the first one, and then the third one. But overall, like I said, between what happened with Quantum Mania, I was not feeling real good about this film. I mean, the trailer looked good, but I'm just like, okay, are we really going to get this? I mean, the trailer's slick, did its job. I'm like, okay, reluctantly I go and, I go in and, sit in the seat. And then of course the film starts and I'm like, okay, all right, all right. Now you got me. Now you got me. And it had some really tough parts in there. And I think part of that, it kind of like made me angry a
Mm.
little bit. All I'm gonna say is justice for Floor. uh I want all of those darn characters. I want plushies of all of them. I want plushies of Lila and the walrus guy and
Oh,
Floor, who was just so stupid but yet so fun at the same time. I just that that whole first of all, James Gunn knows how to write relationships. Okay.
yes.
So what I didn't see in Quantum Mania, even quality wise, with the set design, the writing, James Gunn knows how to write relationships. The fact that I was feeling some kind of way and as angry as Rocket was. I mean, I didn't really care about the walrus that much. I was pissed about Lila, but man, when it turned out that, oh, I'm sorry, y'all should have seen this movie by now. Uh, when it turned out that Floor was no longer with us, I was angry. I was so angry. And then realized that the writing was that good to make me care about a little character like that. I was like, this is it was good to experience, and it just shows how different James Gunn's movies are with respect to the rest of the MCU. So I'm glad it turned out for the best because I was really, 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 really worried.
Yeah, it is something to think about. And there was a lot at stake. There's still a lot at stake because there's no, it's not out of the clear yet. You know, they're at 529 million, I believe, worldwide, which is a good amount. It's not, you know, close to the figure that I think they're going to make. I think they're probably going to make anywhere between 800 or 900 million. This is just, you know,
Mhm.
through the course of the run. But certainly, as you and I had mentioned, what a great year Chris Pratt is having, being in the two, you know, producing, financially producing films out there. But getting
Mhm.
back to the what we're actually talking about in regards to Guardians of the Galaxy, and let's say the quality of the film, and you mentioned Gunn's ability to write relationships. Certainly, this was a heartbreaker, wasn't it? And I was not expecting that walking into the theater to have my heart broken. I mean, goodness gracious, Jack Black just made love to me with the song for
Peaches, peaches, peaches.
yeah,
It's gonna
it
be in my head forever.
was good. I was like, yeah, this man is in there, you know, like he's devoted. And then we get this, and it is heavy. It is not a light subject. He wanted it to come full circle. He wanted it all this stuff to make sense. And it was heartbreaking seeing those creatures manipulated like that. That was cruel. This was on another level, and the villain was great. He was heartless. That guy.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Why I know it's not the ultimate life form. What was his name again?
Remember, but he was wonderful. What a great
Oh,
actor.
he was unapologetically freaking evil. I
Yeah.
wanted him to die. I wanted him to die in the most spectacular freaking fashion
Mhm.
ever. Or was he the supreme being? Uh,
Yeah, maybe that's what it was, but
I think maybe that would but the purple, the malevolent purple guy who
yes.
was the perfect unhinged villain, just my God, it was great. They
Ah,
weren't afraid, or James Gunn was not afraid to give us a villain to freaking hate. It's kind of like Voldemort. One of the reasons why Harry Potter works so well is because we freaking hate Voldemort, but we hate our Dolores Umbridge even more. Thank you, High Evolutionary. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, there was nothing redeeming about this fool, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
mhm. And there were so many things that were right in this. And I still say that if you hadn't seen the first two films, you could walk into the theater and enjoy this film. You knew exactly what was going on. There wasn't any gee, I wonder what these people. No, you kind of know they're a team, and you
Mhm.
also get the sense that something wrong has happened. And boy, this really was horrifically wrong. When they took your heart and they ripped it out of your chest.
I was so
Um,
I was so angry.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
So
they did.
with that being said, like I couldn't stop thinking about the film maybe for about the first 10 days. I couldn't stop thinking about those scenes where there was no words needed. We knew the terror that was going on in those scenes, and it was horrific. And I just really am still very shaken by it. Um, Damn, the writing was good. The writing was wonderful. You know, here I have the stats for the box office, but most
Mhm.
importantly, the anticipation of how well this film was going to do was huge. And I think it is very interesting. You know, you and I were talking about something very important and something that honestly I'm still a little shaken by the fact that there is going to be these auditions. Now, listen, I should have become a casting agent. That's what I should have done in the industry. I should have been a casting agent. And I would give anything to see these audition tapes, Lorena, for Superman Legacy. I think we all know this is going to be a well-written film. We do. Um, what are your thoughts about having to go ahead and do all this recasting? Um, when we're still kind of many of us are still kind of shaken by losing the last, let's say, group of actors, let's say, in these roles.
Um, it's oh my gosh, it's extremely disappointing because finding out Cavill was not going to be Superman, that stabbed me in the chest, and I didn't want to hear anything from James Gunn because of that. It's like I thought we were going to get Cavill. Cavill is Superman. I'm like, do you have any idea how hard it was for me to push Christopher Reeve out of my head and replace it with Henry Cavill? I'm like, you gave this to me and now you're taking it away from me. So I'm going to feel some sort of way about it for quite
And
an
they had
amount of
the
time.
announcements, and Cavill was like, "I'm so pleased they told me to announce it," and we were all excited for it,
Hmm.
and then it was like, no, and I'm like,
And then
"Excuse
you and then
me?"
you took it. And you
Yeah.
took it. I'm just like, bump you. Okay. Whatever. But after seeing the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I'm like, okay, you know how to write relationships. I'm not a fan of Man of Steel, although I like the Snyder cut, Justice League. Not a fan of Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, and the extended cut made it like, made it watchable. But this is a tough one. This is really, really, really tough. If I had to make any kind of casting decision, I know people cannot stand a CW, neither can I. But the actor who plays that Lex Luthor variant in Superman and Lois,
Uh-huh.
I could see him.
I
I
love
can see
him.
him as Lex Luthor. He's perfect. He's
Uh-huh.
perfect. There's nothing, and of course, this is another reason why I gotta beef with Snyder. I did not like how Lex Luthor was portrayed. He seemed more like carrot top jokey. Lex Luthor is sexy. Lex Luthor is lethal. Lex Luthor is a freaking billionaire who would sell his own mother if he had to. I mean, just straight up unapologetic. That's the type of Lex Luthor that I'm looking for. So I'm really he's got his work cut out for him. He really does have his work cut out for him. But I think that if he casts people who, not that the fans have to do this, but someone or people that he feels like fans will be able to connect to, couple that with the writing, I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. And of course, Rogue Comics reminds us it's Chuck Woody who did the job as the High Evolutionary. Thank you, Rogue Comics, and thank you everybody for the comments in the chat. We are seeing them, but of course, we don't have enough time to really say anything about it. Yeah, they have a number of different names that they're throwing around for casting,
Oh, yeah?
and yes, they do. And they
Hmm.
have Nicholas Holt, who was
Ooh, he.
who was in, I think, one of the X-Men films, David Corey
Okay.
Sweat, Jacob Elordi,
Mm,
and Andrew Richardson were some of the names that came up for the roles of Superman. Also, Emma Mackey, Rachel Brosnahan, Phoebe De Navor, and Samara Weaving. And I'm sorry, I'm bad at these. Testing for Lois Lane. Lex
Mm-hmm.
Luthor parts they mentioned. It doesn't say anything about who might be there, but many of you guys already know some of the names that they're talking about. I don't think he's going to write a bad Superman legacy. It's going to be wonderful.
No, I really think he is. Granted, okay, like I did not like the Suicide Squad. I couldn't stand that darn movie, but you cannot say James Gunn didn't write some good dialogue and relationships in that film. I will give him that.
Now, this is the guy who plays Superboy in Titans, the TV show, and I don't think they're going to use him for Superman, but
Mhm.
I think somebody who looks like this guy might work. He's supposed to be a combination of Superman and Lex Luthor, and of course, they made the command decision to make sure he looked more like
Mhm.
Superman, right? But
Yeah.
this guy was amazing in Titans, the TV series that is actually coming to a close. But he was phenomenal in this. I really liked this guy. He looks good, and you need somebody who can carry that, who has that presence. He is
Yeah.
kind of Cavill-esque, if you will. Yeah, but
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, kind of. It's like I can picture it. So
yeah,
it's like if I see his face, my next question is pretty much, can he act?
yes,
Because he fits it.
mhm.
There's a certain look that Clark Kent has to have as Superman. It just is. Over all the movies that we've seen, you know, the comics that we've read, it's a certain look that we're used to seeing for that.
And here, one person says a Lordy seems like he could pull it. This is not a Lordy, but this is another guy, a Lordy, who
Uh-huh.
was mentioned in the list. A lot of you are talking about different options of. This is the guy I would choose, even though he's already been chosen. But I just can't get enough of that young man there. But yeah, I am excited to see what happens. Of course, these casting decisions. So you know what would happen, Lorena? What would happen if I was a casting agent and I had to do this? I would have to be one of those people who would have to say, yes, that person make a great Superman. And then in my mind, I'd be like, but why can't it be Henry Cavill? They're like, did you say something? Nothing. I didn't say shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me at the meeting.
It's like I keep seeing Cavill. I know when this movie comes out, and yes, I will go in and see it. In the back of my head, I'm going to be saying like this: "It's not Cavill.
I'll
He's
be at the
not Henry
meeting.
Cavill.
I'll be
He's
at
not
the
Henry Cavill."
with all the other agents, got all these papers on the table, like, oh shit, look at this headshot of Henry Cavill.
Who put this in here?
Oh my God. Can you believe this? I have him on the phone right now. What is a coincidence? But to be honest with you, it is something to think about. And it really is something. It really was an emotional roller coaster. I'm still in denial that he won't come back somehow. So there, I said that there. I put it out
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I am. There's a lot of us that are like that too.
We're still
Just like
hoping.
it's not Cavill.
We
All
love you,
right,
Henry.
we'll see who you get. We'll see who you get.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be so things happen. Things happen in Hollywood. So you never know. I mean, if Michael Keaton can come back at 70, we just don't know
Yeah.
what can happen. So I just keep an open mind. Now, the last thing I want to mention, Lorena, is this film called Blackberry. So,
Hmm.
it's interesting that sometimes there'll be these tech films or stories that'll come out, and this one is no different. This one, thank you, Darth Plato. Um, this movie is called Blackberry, and yes, it is about a Blackberry. Now, for those of you, and I'm guessing Lorena, you are included in this, and we are working. You and I are working professionals. By
Hmm.
day we're working professionals, but by night we are YouTube gurus.
Yes.
It's true. You and I are working professionals, and we've held a Blackberry or two in our day. And I'll never
Yes.
get over how difficult it was to press those buttons if you had nails, and it didn't matter how long your nails were. It did not matter how long your nails were. It was not the easiest thing to do, but you could do it, like you did it. And we all had to have them. We had them. Um,
Mhm.
they were great for when you had to read emails. For me, a BlackBerry was just about reading emails, and it was one of the first things you could take with you to read emails rather than be, kind of like holding on to a personal computer, which was
Yeah.
not the easiest thing. Not everybody had laptops in the beginning. They didn't just issue
Mhm.
laptops to everybody. So
Right.
if you had a laptop, you were expected to take your laptop with you. After a while, you're like, gee, I don't want to carry my laptop everywhere. It'd be great if I could get emails and respond to emails, because you could respond to emails and make a phone call if you had a BlackBerry, because you could pull it up on your BlackBerry. So they were essential, especially if you worked for a place where, it's like every 5 minutes they're sending out emails and you had to respond.
Mhm.
And there are
Yeah.
a lot of us who had that, where, especially if you're troubleshooting or someone has a question and you saw it. Now if you were walking around or doing something else, oh, it's in your BlackBerry. Yeah, I got it. I read it already. I'm up to speed with what's going on. It was essential. The idea of our phones now, which we use, like we use BlackBerries, is pretty much the same. Everybody
Mhm.
their email nowadays, but for the working professionals, back then, you really needed a BlackBerry. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because of this movie, Blackberry. There's a movie about it. And I wasn't necessarily sold. And I kind of laughed because, and there's nothing wrong with it. This person who wrote this article is very clever. It's very clever to say,
Mhm.
well, it's as deep as Elvis. And I said, excuse me? What?
Really?
What? I'm like, how do you make the connection? But of course, it is a little clickbaity, but it is a good film. Like it's a decent film. And I did just want to mention it because it has affected so many of us, working professionals, and the attitude of making this film was kind of heartbreaking, because you have these sort of young guys who, I guess, I don't know how true all the details are, but
Mhm.
they had the idea, and a very smart, very shrewd businessman, kind of sweeps and excuse me, and they're not prepared for that. I think that happens a lot. We don't hear about it all the time, but it is the norm
Mhm.
in business, especially for early tech, innovative tech, where people, sell things for just a little, a certain amount of money, thinking that they're going to do well. And, they don't do
Mhm.
well at all. Like they don't, or it gets so distorted from their original idea. And I better hurry up and share this before we run out of time. It gets so distorted from their original idea that it's unrecognizable. And here you can kind of see, this thing. It says BlackBerry review: a biopic of smartphone turns out to be as triumphant and tragic as Elvis. Now let's just be honest. You and I both know that it's not going to be, anything like that. But it was triumphant and tragic. And here you can kind of see the cast here, of the guys, from the
Oh
casting
my
crew.
gosh.
You remember those
Uh-huh.
days. You remember these days. Um,
Yeah. Yep.
Look at this guy. I just love the wig they put on. It was just the best. This is just absolutely amazing. And here it says, who knew a Canadian biopic of an infamous smartphone? Now, I don't know why it's infamous. It did a lot. A lot of people loved their BlackBerry. So, I think it did it for work wise. It did what it was supposed to do. Could be this entertaining, even poignant and moving. And it's this and so much more. And they talk about the revolutionary
Mm.
device that first combined a computer with a phone all in one. So here he says that it's iconic tales of new age business like Social Network, Moneyball, The Big Short. I was also going to say Halt and Catch Fire, things like that. So I did just want to
I
mention.
liked Halt and Catch Fire.
Yeah, it was fun. I did want to mention it, and I had to give this author, what is his name? I have to give him a little street cred. Um, what's the guy's name? Pete Hammond. I have to give
Mhm.
Pete Hammond just a little street cred for how dare you compare this to Elvis. But you did get my attention, and the film isn't that bad. So, guys, check it out. It's in the theaters now. It's finally made it onto the theaters. And the trailer,
Mhm.
Lorena, the trailer is exactly what you would expect it to be. It's fun. It's entertaining. If you are a geek and you like Blackberries and tech, which many of you do, I think that this would appeal to you all. So for those of us who have held the Blackberry, this one's for you. Many of you, I bet who are listening to this right now have had the pleasure of owning one. So that's all I was going to say. Blackberry versus Elvis. Come on. This is even a stretch.
Yeah. I mean, you got, I mean, the headline got attention, but let's face it, Elvis was a legend. Blackberry was a piece of technology that got outsmarted and became obsolete thanks to Apple. But anyway.
Well, it certainly was a very important era. And I remember when we had one of our previous presidents, President Obama, he had a Blackberry. And I remember the day in the White House when they said, well, oh no, Mr. President, you can't
You
have a
can't have
Blackberry.
a
He said, say
Blackberry.
what? Excuse me. What did you say? And somebody made a parody song about don't take my Blackberry,
Mhm.
and he was like, you can't do that, I need my Blackberry. And it was like, he needs his Blackberry, come on man, make it secure for him. And of course he got to keep the Blackberry, but it was very funny. The idea of taking away tech. Could you imagine if somebody said, hey, you can't use your phone? You'd be like, what?
Yeah, that was like a point in time where, and the government is always behind the general industry on stuff like this, because when I worked at Stark, there's something called a skiff, right? I can say that because it's out there in general thing. Could not bring my cell phone into the skiff. It had to stay in the car. Why? They didn't have any protocols to do that, to handle that. So their protocol was, you can't bring it in. And that was pretty much it. But it got to the point, especially when Obama got into office. It's like, look, technology is going to be with us. So guess what? You need to figure out how to fix that.
Absolutely. And of course, you and I have watched different shows in the military where they have to put their cell phones on the outside before they enter a room,
Hmm.
even today. So there's true. Guys, thank you so much for joining Lorena and I today. Lorena, where can people find you?
Well, folks, you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitch. You can find me on Twitter, opining and dropping all kinds of tweets about stuff. And of course, you can find me on YouTube, where I do various videos and live streams about pop culture, sci fi analysis, gaming, and of course, theme park live streams and videos. Also, watch parties with myself and usually with her as well, sometimes with Retro Nerd Girl too. You can also see me, all the both of us, on Toxic Male Appreciation, which is on a little hiatus because I'm going to be on vacation for a little bit. But of course, you can also find me here on Ladies of the PGS here on the Burnettwork. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us.
Well, Lorena, thank you for joining me today. Of course, you're my co-host, so but you know what I mean. Thank you. Always a pleasure to have you here on the show. And guys, please do make sure you like and subscribe to Lorena Creole's channel here as well. And guys, also subscribe to my channel, Positive Fandom, where I do all the parlay in the fandom on Sundays for Sunday brunch. I do every day. I do a live stream of gaming. Right now, I am doing Jedi Survivor, and yes, I am falling times, but that's okay. I didn't
That's
think.
okay. I got attacked by rabid dogs in Fallout 3 and died, and I had to start over again.
Yeah, the save point is my savior, right, guys? Tom Jr. Jackson knows
Yeah.
this to be true. Just make sure you just gotta make it to the save point. With my mother saying, "Can I have some orange juice?" And I'm like, "Yes, mom. Just a minute, mom. I gotta make it to the save point. I love you." One of these days, somebody's gonna be like, and as the YouTuber plays their game, they ignore family obligations. I'm like, she just
Mhm.
puts the orange juice. She has milk and water, but she wants orange juice. I'm sorry, I didn't put that on the table for you, mom. Um, and also check out Tom Jr. Jackson's YouTube channel as well. Tom, we are
Mm.
all good people, and Tom has had over 80 reviews on his channel. He also does a live fun co-pop show on Friday, so do check that out, guys. There's a lot more coming up here on the PGS. Gonna miss you, Lorena. I don't know what to do for the next not having
Yeah,
you here. So
I'm so gonna miss you guys too. But I'll be back. 2 weeks. I'll be back.
Well, enjoy your vacation. And Tom Jr. Jackson, we are all good people. Thank you, Tom, for being there. As always, my collaborator, moderator, and friend. And guys, thank you in the chat for also, when I didn't know the names of things as usual, you guys knew what it was, and also letting us know what's going on. And guys, always remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Take care, everybody.